Located between the towns of Sandy and Government Camp, north of Highway 26, Sandy Ridge is the de facto mountain bike resort for the Portland area. One could imagine a world where the second the snow melts at the ski areas, you load the bike and take it to Sandy Ridge, but it's not quite that easy. There aren't any lifts at Sandy Ridge, but that's what makes it great. The trailhead shows up in most GPS systems that are hooked to the internet. If for whatever reason you're not seeing it in your GPS, it's simple enough to find. There is a big sign at the turnoff of Highway 26 directing you to Sandy Ridge. If someone has plowed into the sign, you can still also find it by taking the second entrance to Sleepy Hollow Drive. Don't take the first left on Sleepy Hollow because then you'll have to drive on Sleepy Hollow for miles and miles, and that's no fun. It's just this neighborhood residential road that threads through the back road. So take the second left. Built on a chunk of old timberland that the BLM bought from Portland General Electric after they decided to take out the Marmot Dam, Sandy Ridge was planned as a mountain biking trail system from the very beginning. Everything radiates off of Homestead Road, which is a gated paved road that is used only by the Portland Water Bureau to access the Bull Run watershed, where the city of Portland gets most of its water. The system was built specifically to accommodate riders of all levels, and indeed there are trails that are rideable by all levels of rider here, from trails appropriate for your kids that circle the parking lot to nearly impossible double black trails accessed from the kiosk 3.5 miles up Homestead Road. The climb up Homestead Road is probably one of the nicest features of this system, as it makes for a relaxed, chatty, and accessible climb, quite unlike climbing up single track or old logging roads. You can ascend this road at whatever pace you want, although I do suggest standing up to pedal every now and then. If your legs have a tendency to want to fall asleep and cramp up on road climbs if you're a mountain biker. I mean, you'll discover this on a road climb if you're not used to sitting in the same position for very long. The parking lot does fill up quickly. It's not big enough to accommodate the demand. This trail system is a resounding success, so be polite and carpool here when it's peak times, like on the weekends and beautiful sunny days. If you didn't end up parking underneath the gate because the main parking lot was full, you access the trail system by riding the pump track that's to the right of the kiosk at the bottom. It leads right up to the yellow gate, which you'll have to squeeze past. There's no way to actually ride your bike past the yellow gate. It's like this overzealous vehicle exclusion system, I guess. Anyway, you have to kind of walk your bike through the gate here. After about 2 miles of road with 700 feet of elevation gain, you'll come to the first major intersection with Hide and Seek. This entrance marks the dividing line between upper and lower Hide and Seek. You'll have passed quite a few other trailheads on your way up. Laura's Loop, which is really close to the bottom, is fantastic for training your kids on. Higher up and on the right is the entrance to Little Monkey, a downhill freeride trail. Both of those are endlessly loopable, one for keeping the freeriders happy, the other for whichever parent gets to do the endless repeats with the kids. Anyhow, after 2 miles of climbing, you'll come across the intersection for Hide and Seek. If you're really tired or this is your second lap of the day, it is acceptable to take this intersection and ride lower Hide and Seek all the way to the bottom. If your legs are still fresh, it is absolutely not acceptable to take this intersection. There is so much more trail at the top. Climb another 0.8 miles and about 300 feet of elevation gain up the road, and you'll come across a trailhead on your right for Flow Motion. Ride down this trail. It's a mile or so of flowy goodness, and it's a nice little diversion. It'll spit you back out on the road at the entrance to lower Hide and Seek. Sure, you have to gain back all that elevation on your way back to the top, but it was worth it. Now you may continue climbing until you reach the kiosk, which should be about another 1.5 miles with 700 feet of climbing. If this is your first time at Sandy Ridge, this isn't the last of the climbing, but at least the rest of the grinding will be on single track from now on, so there is some variety. Take a breather at the kiosk and then continue on the road for a short distance to Rock Drop. You'll see across the road that there is another trail called Follow the Leader. Don't ride Follow the Leader. It's pure torture. You'll do some more climbing up Rock Drop until you come to this intersection. Go right-ish up the hill, then left-ish. Follow the signs. Sandy Ridge is actually generally it's pretty well signed. Now you're on Communication Breakdown, whose sole purpose is to climb 0.8 miles and about 350 feet of elevation up a bunch of switchbacks to the only exposure on the entire system until it drops you off here at the summit, right at the border with the Bull Run watershed, where Portland gets most of its water. Have a snack here and stay out of the watershed. The next downhill section is pretty okay, dropping you about 500 feet of elevation and 1.2 miles into a giant hole in the middle of the woods that you now get to climb back out of. Did you catch that? Once you got to the kiosk, you just climbed an extra 300 feet, and now you're going to lose 500 and then climb another 300 to get to where you wanted to go in the first place. But that's a digression. The coolest part of this whole route is where Communication Breakdown meets up with Quid Pro Flow at the worst rock garden ever. Don't bother going left. It won't save you from any climbing. You're not getting out of more climbing. But first, this rock garden. Now, there isn't an experienced mountain biker in the world who doesn't love a little challenge, but there are some serious caveats. First of all, rock gardens only work if they're properly pitched. That means the trail needs to be steep enough at the rock garden in order for a biker to keep their speed up so they can gain and maintain the needed momentum to clear obstacles. The other reason pitch is important is that it allows the rider to throw their weight back. Somewhere. Anywhere. And have some room to adjust their angle of attack. This rock garden at the beginning of Quid Pro Flow contains protruding features that would only be reasonably clearable if it was another 5 to 10 degrees steeper. As it is, they're just wheel-sucking holes and momentum-robbing vertical speed bumps trying to throw you over the bars and knock your teeth out. So, almost everyone ends up putting a foot down in this rock garden and swearing at this rock garden. After this rock garden, there are these cool little techie features that would be awesome if you hadn't just lost all your momentum and teeth in that nightmare up there. Then Quid Pro Flow just sort of straightens out into what's obviously an old road grade before you have no choice but to climb another 350 feet of vertical to get back out. Quid Pro Flow, get it? Anyway, all that said, you should still ride Communication Breakdown and Quid Pro Flow. They both cover a lot of territory, and they add in some trail miles. They're the best that can be done given the topography on this side of the mountain. The only other option would be to not have trails over here, and that would be totally unacceptable. So, why did you just go through this torture? To get to the top of 2 turntables and a microwave. That's why. While only people who came of age in the 90s listening to KNRK will get the pun, there is in fact at least one turntable, as well as a microwave and inexplicably an old stroller, included in the garbage hanging from trees at the trail entrance. This trail is the best reason to come to Sandy Ridge. This trail makes riding Quid Pro Flow worth it. This trail makes every ounce of climbing you did to get here pay off. So, what did you get? You get berms with technical features in them. You get tables and rollers, just the right amount of chunder. You get speed and lots of it, as well as big wide grins on your face and an elevated heart rate. This is everything a trail should be. It's everything a trail wants to be. It soaks up all 160 millimeters of your travel. It helps you get your money's worth out of that enduro bike you spent way too much money on. Everything about Two Turntables is just so perfect. The sound of rubber on dirt, the feel of railing your bike side to side, up one embankment and down the other, picking up speed on tables and kickers. This thing is just magical. It's just the perfect downhill shred with just the right amount of tossing your bike around that makes you want to keep coming back for more. Eventually, Triple T drops you off at this bridge, which is also where Upper Hide and Seek meets Lower Hide and Seek. I didn't include Upper Hide and Seek in this video, but it's the rowdier, rockier, scarier counterpart to Lower Hide and Seek. It's worth riding if you just want to ride up to the kiosk without any more climbing and then go back down without any trouble. It'll all link up. Once across the bridge, it's a wee little climb of about 50 feet of elevation and 500 linear feet of kind of surprisingly challenging trail back to the intersection with the road and Lower Hide and Seek. Lower Hide and Seek starts out with a lot of pocket berms and little kickers, and the berms, kickers, and tables are well manicured and maintained all the way to the bottom. As seems to be the case with every trail system, the closer a trail segment is to the parking lot, the better maintained it seems to be, with more kind of little features everywhere. Lower Hide and Seek is not an exception to this rule. There's a kicker everywhere there could be one, and a berm everywhere there should be one. For the most part, the tables and other features help you keep your speed up and get you well set up for subsequent features. There are pavers on Lower Hide and Seek, but that's okay. This trail gets probably the most traffic out of the entire system, and I'd rather see pavers than shredded up and sketchy berms. One thing that it seems like it would be nice to see a little less of, though, is gravel. This appears to be a case of seemed like a good idea at the time that went very, very wrong. Gravel is nice because it helps harden the surface against moisture and heavy use. It lasts longer than wood features. But gravel is bad because as the soil dries out in the summer, it just keeps getting looser and looser. And it just makes for this surface that's terrifying, especially on the berms. Be very, very careful and aware, especially near the entrances and exits, as that kind of seems to be where the most gravel resides. There's actually kind of surprise patches of gravel throughout the system, so be vigilant. Eventually, after tilting the bike through tight little turns between trees for a couple of miles, you'll come back to the road. On the other side is Laura's Loop and the way back to the parking lot. Laura's is the quintessential intermediate line, and it illustrates again one of the greatest features of this trail system, which is progression. If you're coming to the sport from skiing or road biking, Sandy Ridge is perfect because it handles progression just as well as a ski resort, with ultra beginner lines that circle the parking lot at the bottom, intermediate trails requiring minimal climbing, and advanced lines you have to climb 2,000 feet to get to. There are free ride trails, there are flow trails, and there are aggravating features of chunder. My favorite thing about this park is how it has something for every rider to love and something for every rider to complain about. I'm serious about that last part. Every trail needs aggravating features that push someone out of their comfort zone. If there's not something to make you mad, something that vacuums a couple of curse words out of you, then you haven't really gone mountain biking, have you? Sandy Ridge is probably the most highly developed mountain biking area within an hour of Portland, and yet, miraculously, it still accomplishes this. Sandy Ridge is real mountain biking. Pick a day, drive there, and go ride your bike.